so my dad, right? My dad was two things, right? So he was a teacher.
Yes.
But he used to teach guitar on Saturday morning, right? And so we always had guitars like in the house, and I think there was and he would play in folk clubs like when he was younger, before we came along and spoiled it all. So I think there was an element of that where, so he was sort of a performer, you know, he'd play guitar and sing, but he'd kind of put that to one side and he would teach the guitar. So I think there was an element of him that kind of went, when I wanted to be a performer, he was like, brilliant, do that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I don't think, and at no point did he ever go, because I had 2 kids and you've ruined my life. He's never like that.
Yeah.
But it was a sort of thing where, you know, I think it was one of those things where that was, and we, in our house, like, he really loved comedy as well. Like, we all, so there was sort of, you know, he was into like the Goons and Python and that sort of stuff.
So were you watching that together as a family?
Well, we watched, the stuff that we would watch together. My mum had a real sort of, my mum was like that thing of like, you know, she wasn't a fan of ITV. My mum's basically Hyacinth Bouquet, you know, she's keeping up appearances. It's like, oh no, we don't like ITV. She can't make anything of that going on.
Yeah.
So no, we would, as a family, but we watched everything, you know, and it was all that sort of, I do remember watching Jasper Carrot as a family, and us all, and Victoria Wood, and us all sitting there. But like I said, we watched, you know, Allo, and, you know, to me, because that's the other thing, film and TV, we didn't have a video recorder, and we didn't get a video recorder until I was probably 15 or something. So it was one of those things where I was obsessive about everything. I used to listen to like all the Radio 4 comedy, all of that sort of stuff. I just memorize it. I'd get tapes out of the library. You know, it was all of that. And
is that at the same time as the street performing? Do these kind of coincide? These discovering,
absolutely.
Hang on, well, these people that make people laugh, and hang on, there's these people that stand on stilts.
Well, I remember when we were at school, we had to do this art project where you had to take a picture from a magazine of somebody and cut them in half, and then you had to draw the other half of them. And I remember I did Lenny Henry, and I remember like watching Lenny Henry on TV, and I've told him this, like it's this thing of like, I remember watching him and not being able to work out that, you know, I would watch and just go, how did that, like, he just seemed like he was in a completely different, you know, at least with, say, like Jasper Carrot, you could sort of go, oh, well, he does the folk songs and he's worked his way through that. You know what I mean? Whereas I would watch, say, somebody like the Two Ronnies, but specifically like Lenny Henry and like kind of the Two Ronnies, and I would look at them on TV, Morecambe and Wise, and you just think, well, how do you get to do that? I couldn't see, you know what I mean? I just couldn't see. It was like, they were like a completely different species. It was like, those people are on television.
Well, almost like they've been kind of born into a TV show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Those people, you know, and Lenny was like that. You'd see him and you just go like, well, how? That didn't, you know, but so my dad, sorry, that was going back to what I was saying before. So my dad, as well.
No, this tracks. I'm listening to you. This tracks.
I'm glad it does. That's what I need. I need like a little pixie that just, this tracks, you're fine. I need an emotional support pixie. That's what I'm
very happy to do it. I'll come round with you.
Yeah, I might need a bigger shoulder pad. But
Ross, you're drifting. You're drifting.
Get it back on there. I'd like you to be dressed as a sea captain. I'd like you to be dressed as Captain Birdseye and just say, you're drifting, get back on there. And anything like that. Some kind of conversational compass to get me. I'll just be in the middle of a conversation and just say, Lee-ho! That's what it is.
Back to the street,
Yeah.
Back to the street,
So,
Lenny Henry.
Yeah. So my dad, so one of the other things that my dad did was his whole life, he was obsessed with sailing, right? He was, him and my granddad built so on a Saturday morning, I used to go, because he was teaching guitar, and my sister would go to dance classes, which I went to for a while, but it was, anyway, that's another thing. But I was, so I used to go and spend Saturday mornings with my granddad. My granddad was a woodwork teacher. So from a practical point of view, from a very, very young age, I was like really young, I would go to my granddad's, and my granddad would, we would, whatever I wanted to build, we just used to build things. So I was like drills and knives and all of that sort of stuff. And my granddad was like, yeah, my fingers all cut to pieces and stuff. But it was like, what do you want to build? So my granddad was brilliant like that from a practical point of view. But so I had that as well, which is great. And then what was my point? Yeah, so the point is that
sailing.
So, so my dad used to raise money for this charity, and it was called the Ocean Youth Club. And what they used to do was they would take young people away on these. They had these boats, these big sailing ships, and they would take young people away to give them a chance to experience the adventure of. Because my dad had been I was in the Scouts as well. My dad was sort of like, he had this sort of adventurous side to him, and he used to take these kids away. But when he wasn't actually teaching them how to sail, like in the school holidays and stuff, he spent his entire time, all of his free time basically was like raising money, so he'd write letters to businesses, and he was like, and he was always doing these constantly fundraising. Like he had this little office, and he was in there just constantly coming up with like raffles to raise money for this charity. And then one of the things that we used to do was we had this caravan that had like the charities like logos on it.
Yeah.
And on the weekends, like we would go to these like fates, and the big one was lifeboat days, where the RNLI would put on like a big day raising money for the RNLI, and then other charities would come along and they'd have like it was like a fair or fete sort of thing going on. Lifeboat Day it was called. So there was that. And then there was the Fish Quay Festival in Newcastle, and he would turn up with this caravan and he would hand out leaflets. We would shake we'd have the buckets, and we would shake the charity. Shake the charity
sister.
Yeah. And then, but often it was me and my dad. And as obviously as a kid, like it's great to be doing a bit of charity work, but at the same time, we would, I'd be surrounded by all this, like, you just sort of, I'll back in a minute. And it was while I was doing all of that at the Fish Quay Festival, I used to see like these street performers.
Brilliant.
And then myself and my friend Greg, we saw these jugglers, and we learned, so I learned to juggle. And at that point,
how did you learn to juggle though? Like you can see a juggler, and what, he helped you, or did you buy them? Go back to the bedroom.
Do you really want this?
Definitely, I want to know.
I'm an extra hour. So while I was at the Fish Quay Festival, there was a kite maker, right? I've always loved kites, and I've got a bit of stand up at the moment about how much I hate kites. Really? Well, you haven't. And do you hate what sort of kites do you hate?
I hate building a kite.
Right.
I've got children, and the kite's back in my life, and I don't want to.
Right. Well, you've got the wrong kite then. What you need is a flexifoil.
Right.
That's what you need.
What's this?
Get yourself a flexifoil. They're the ones that are they're like a miniature. They're like a mini parachute. And you can get ones that are so strong. The ones that when they're on the surfboards and they do kite surfing.
Oh, that thing.
You get one of those, and they're powerful enough. You can take off and do big jumps and stuff. Yeah, it's brilliant. So
back.
Yeah, so
back. That's my fault. My fault. I went off on the kites. Back in.
So there was a kite maker, and he was selling kites. He had a little stall, and then we got chatting to him, and so we were watching all these street performers. And then the kite man we just kind of hanging around the kite stall, and he showed us how to make these kites. And then he said, "Oh, I've got this shop, and you can, And then we were sort of helping him. We were sort of moonlighting. And then he said, come and he said, if you come in, we'll give you some. I'll sort you out kite wise anyway." So we went into town to see that, and then at the same time, there was a shop called the Ugly Juggling Company, and in the same place as the Kite Guy. And then I'd already started sort of playing around tennis balls, trying to copy these street performers. And then I discovered the Ugly Juggling Company, and there was this moment where we went in there, and the guys that ran it, the Ugly Jugglers, were like, you went in there and you went, "Oh my God." So there's like, it just opened up this world of and then it was that thing of like, I always wanted to go and see Circus, is like when we went on holiday. And the thing I loved about the street performers were they were all these kind of like sort of dirty end of showbiz, they were always like stunk, they always get covered in paraffin, and like they just had that kind of, sort of this crusty, and then so I started going to.
When you go into that shop, it's like you found your people. It's like that moment
100%.
You go, "Oh, they're here."
Yeah.
To compare it to the classroom, for example, where
Absolutely.
you got this dyslexia, you can't follow what's happening, and then here they are.
Yeah.
Freaks.
Yeah. And
yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I say this to my kids all the time. I always say, like, just the thing about school is, the thing about school is everybody's just dumped in there. But as soon as you've got to go out and find your people. And it's the same. And I'm sure you're the same as like when you start doing stand-up. I think it's changed. It's maybe changed a little bit now but certainly back in the sort of early 90s, it was very much a refuge for those who weren't well.
It was like that 18
now,
years ago.
You know
what
I mean? It's sort of like, it's now, I think, but maybe people kind of have more of a they get filtered out a bit earlier. But anyway, so
yeah.
So I started juggling. I convinced my friend that we should do a street show, and then I was about 11.
This is magical. This is just.
By the time I was 14, right? So basically, at 14, me and my mate, we would go into Newcastle with a suitcase. We would set up and we would do a half-hour street show. So I was like, literally like, we had, so my act at that point, we had a thing where we would, because I was always like a fan of Evel Knievel, right?
Okay.
So what I did was, my dad helped me build a plywood ramp, and I got these little toy buses, and we would recreate Evel Knievel's bus jump. So on a unicycle, and we'd do the big build up, and we'd have the bus there, and we'd like ride along, and they'd jump over, and we would do like.
And how many people are gathering around here?
Are you talking 100, 200 people? Like it's one of those things.
200 people at 14.
Yeah, at 14, and then
good God, man.
And then I would get on my mate's shoulders. Greg would I'd get on his shoulders, and then I would get how this never be allowed now. I don't think it was allowed then. And we would get somebody out of the audience to lie on the floor underneath me, and we would give them some bellows. And they would pump the bellows, and I would juggle fire over a member of the audience. And like that was the finale of the show. And we used to do.
Don't think it would be allowed now.
Don't think so.
No.
And there was one time I had the fire. I was sitting on his shoulders, and I had the fire clubs, and I lit them, and so I got the fire, and I'm going blah blah blah. I'm talking to the crowd and saying, and then we're going to attempt to blah blah. And I went like this, and I down just sort of around my crotch area. So what is that smell? I looked down. I set fire to his hair, and he went, "Is my hair on fire?" I'm like, "No." And then, but we used to like juggle. We had juggling knives, and we also did a thing where we'd recreate King Kong's ascent to the Empire State Building. It was just daft. It was comedy. It was a comedy juggling act, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was sort of, and when people sort of go, how did the style develop and all that? It came from that. It came from literally starting with no audience, setting up, okay, we're going to start the show. There, you move in here. Okay, so we've got this going on. And, and you'd get them, right, move in. And then at the end, you'd hand the bucket around. And it's that thing of like, on a Saturday, we were earning hundreds of pounds because people, everyone had chucked the coins in the bucket. And then we would come home and we'd have a
mint for 14. I mean, at 14, hundreds of pounds is millions of pounds.
Yeah.
You know that feeling when you decide today's the day you're finally going to stop a bad habit, and then 15 minutes later, you're stress eating a family-sized bag of crisps. Yeah, me neither. But if you actually want to make a change, it doesn't need to be hard or expensive. You just need the right tool to start, and that's exactly what Fume Zero gives you. This episode is sponsored by Fume Zero. That's F-U-M, pronounced Fume. It's their brand new grab-and-go flavoured air device, and here's why it's different. It's affordable, just $24.99 for a sleek, pre-filled, single-use device. It's completely clean, zero nicotine, zero vapour, zero batteries, just natural, plant-based flavoured air. Here it is. I've got it in my pocket. Look at that. Very slick. Like something you might find in a nice museum. Got a bit of weight to it as well. I like that. We've got the flavours. Talk about the flavours. Always a couple of strange ones. We got peach blush, black licorice. That's going to be a popular one. Orange vanilla and raspberry lemon. So if you're ready to start the good habit, take zero chances with Fume Zero today. It's available now for just $24.99 at tryfume.com. That's TRYFUM.com.
So when I was 14, I bought myself, but like I say, we couldn't afford it. Like my parents, there was loads of stuff that, teachers, it's good wage, but it's not like, you're not getting everything that,
Absolutely not,
so,
no.
So I bought myself a video camera. I bought myself like an editing, like a mixer thing. Bought myself my own video camera. But I put the money back in. So I bought a big, those big giraffe unicycles. And these are cheap. So it's that thing of like, and then all my juggling gear got better and better. And then we go do more. And then you go, all right, if we get the giraffe, then it's good. So, and so by the time I was 14, and we went and saw a circus, and I went backstage because I've always been on the blag, like since I was a little kid. And I went and after the circus, I went backstage and I said, look, this is what I can do. I really want a job. And I genuinely thought that they would go, oh yeah, you can just join us now. And my mum and dad would be like, when I was 14, there was a guy who came to the workshop. He was he was a clown and he sold balloons, and he gave me and my mate a job, and we would go with him at the weekends all over the country to these fairs, these big agricultural shows, and we would sell balloons, like helium balloons. We would sell balloons, and that was our way of sort of getting there. And then we'd do our act. And it was, I think, 14 years old, and I was traveling around the country. And then that's when I was seeing other street performers. And so by the time I was 14, I knew that I could leave school. I could either, the circus people said, when you're 18, let us know, and, come back when you're 18, and if we like your act, we'll give you a job. So I'm thinking, right, I might be able to just be on a wage from that. Or my plan was because that's the other thing. Greg wanted to be an architect. So the double act, I knew that he was going to have to start, doing his exams and stuff.
Mad to me, isn't it? Because, and I suppose because I'm also a stand-up comedian, that I can't imagine being Greg. If I'm with you, the whole time you're describing this, I'm with you going, yeah, you're just 14 and going, right, so circus at 18, and maybe we can make this bigger. Maybe we can take this into theatres. To be doing that and going, I want to design a building, a car park.
Yeah. But weirdly, I didn't, it wasn't that thing of like, Greg wanted to be an architect. It's that thing of like, I didn't look at him and go, why wouldn't you want to do this? It's like he had a passion for a thing.
Fair enough.
And there was part of me, it was one of those things where Greg was great at school. And I looked at it and just went, in my head, I'm going, yeah, well, obviously Greg's going to go off and he's going to go off and design buildings because that's that's what he wants to do. Brilliant.
Yeah,
you know?
okay, yeah.
And then, so at 14, I had figured out right, I don't need to worry about school anymore. So this big, so the weight was lifted. Why would I need to bother about? And also, and it was at that point, I was at home one day, and I used to ring into the local radio station, and they would have a quiz, and I used to ring in and win prizes from the radio. So like, I rang in once, I lied about my age, and I won a VHS copy of the film Maniac Cop.
Right. Don't know that one.
It's pretty good. It's got Bruce Campbell in it. And then that sort of, so anyway, so it's one of those things where at that point I won some tickets. Like Frank Sidebottom was on the radio,
Right.
and they said, ring in and tell us what's Frank's football team. And nobody else rang in. And because I'd seen him on kids' TV, and I rang in, and I won tickets to a show. And I said to my dad, they were like, so the tickets got sent out, and they said, you'll like this, right? I said to my dad, I've got these tickets on Friday night. It's a ticket at the Tyne Theatre, and it's called the Off the Curb Comedy Roadshow.
Wow.
And Off the Curb had put on a tour.
Off the Curb is a stand-up comedy agency.
Yeah.
Don't know. Of which it was my agency, actually.
Sorry, didn't mean to open up any wounds there. Anyway, so my dad went, yeah, I'll take you to see that. And then, so we went to this show. Jack Dee was the host. Simon Fanshawe had just won the Perrier. Jack Dee, Joe Brand, Simon Fanshawe, Frank Sidebottom, and Chris Lynham, who Chris Lynham was the guy, like, this is brilliant. Like, he had hair like mine, but it was like gelled up. And his act was, he would, for his finale, he would strip naked, shove a firework up his arse.
Oh, this man is a comedy legend.
Yeah,
I've only heard this.
Firework up the arse and sing "There's no business like show business." and so, yeah, brilliant. And
get that on live at the Apollo, surely.
No, true. No, but weirdly, Chris Lynham was on like all those late night Channel 4. There was a show called The Happening at the time, which was I think Jules Holland might have hosted it. There was a show called The Happening. There was another one called Paramount City that Arthur Smith used to do. There was Packet of Three on Channel 4. There was all of these shows that came in the wake of Friday Live, Saturday Live and all that. Yeah. And people like Chris Lynham was on all the time, and so I'd seen him on TV, and I sat in that audience, and even though I had seen mainstream comedians before,
yes.
Now bear in mind, so I'm still at school now. I'm 14, right, watching this, and who
have you gone with, Greg or your dad? Sorry,
with
or
my dad.
You've gone with your dad.
My
Sorry,
dad.
Yes,
and then Simon Fanshawe was doing all this stuff about how much he loved sucking cocks, and I remember my dad went, "It's not for me." But everything else, and then Joe Brand was sort of still in that, again, it was that thing of like, before she was known, so she didn't, it was that thing of like, it was a proper, I think people forget the fact that like Joe now, who's this sort of national treasure,
icon,
Bake Off, extra slice and all that sort of stuff. She was like punk back then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because she had the hair, and she had the DMs, and the
amazing.
sort of, it was that thing of, she was really sort of, and Jack came out.
Was she? Did Joe? Sorry, Joe had an alias, didn't she? The Sea
Monster.
The Sea Monster. Was she the Sea Monster?
No. She no longer the Sea Monster.
Right, post Sea Monster.
She was Joe Brand. It was just before she went massive.
Yeah.
And so I was watching this as a 14-year-old, and I had everything. I was already a fan of Frank Sidebottom. Jack comes out, and I'd never seen him before, and it was one of those. And I know this is weird. And again, like when I told him this, I mean, he said he had the same thing with Jeremy Hardy.
Jeremy, yeah.
But it's this mad thing of like, you wouldn't necessarily look at me, at Jack, and go, he's massively inspirational, you know.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where he came out, he had the suit on at the time, which nobody did. That's the other thing people forget. Jack was the first one to wear, he wore a suit and a tie. But if you think about it, at the time, everyone was like wearing, you know, there was people like Mark Thomas, Kevin Day, Mark Hurst, who was Mark My Words, all the Marks. You had these guys. Everyone at that time was jeans and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Comedy clubs, nobody wore a suit in comedy clubs. And then Jack came out, and you were like, hang on a second, this guy's like, there was wearing a suit back then was genuinely subversive.
Was the alternative, yeah.
And I just remember watching him, and then here's a guy who, the fact that he just came across as, he was so authentically, he wasn't trying to be liked, you know, the fact that he came out and he was just like, oh, here we go, you know. And there was some, weirdly, he was very similar to like, because Bill Hicks at that time, Bill Hicks had, and again, drawing these comparisons, when Bill Hicks at that time first came over to the UK, and he would come out and he would do that joke about, let me plaster on this fake smile and plow through this shit one more time, bringing humor into your lives that you couldn't possibly think of yourselves. It's very similar to what, that was his opening line, you know. Bill's here.
Good to be here.
Bill's here. But Jack had a similar thing, you know, where it was that thing of like, there was this woman, she ran down, Frank Sidebottom had thrown little Frank's body into the auditorium, and a woman ran down to grab it. Jack walks back on stage, and he just got to the mic, and he just looked at this woman, and this woman stopped, like she'd been caught, like going, I'm keeping this little Frank's body. And Jack just went, you sad fuck. And I just, and it's one of those things, as a 14-year-old, I literally just went, wow. And this is a guy in a suit saying, a guy in a suit is standing on stage, and the utter, like, to me, it just seemed like this thing of like, and it was hilarious. And he did all this, and it was like, you know, he just did all this stuff that was kind of, you know, that was when he's doing the stuff about going to the craft fair, and it was all this stuff about what a bunch of losers there are at craft fair, and then and he goes in the fudge fair. He used to do stuff about the fudge fairy. All right, okay. It was like, and at the time it was expensive. It's like £10 for fudge. Oh, how'd you do it and make a profit? And it was like, and the thing about dipping scratch pens, dipping it in, and just like, dip and scratch ones, you dip and scratch. You can't get these anymore. Yeah, there's a reason you can't get anymore, because see this biro, let me write this on your forehead. And there was you know what I mean? There was like, he did all this stuff that was just, again, even though on paper you wouldn't think punk, rock and roll, never seen anything. You just go like, and then Jo comes out and she's talking, you know, and there's just this, and then, you know, the chaos of Frank Sidebottom, of just this guy like sing-alongs and weird puppets and stuff. And then obviously Chris Lynham. I remember sitting there, but I think it was mainly Jack.
Chris Langham was up. Did you say?
Chris Lynham.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, he could still get work at that point. There was, anyway.
Can I tell you just quick? Do you know what you're going to say there?
No, go on. I do, but go
good.
on. Yes.
But you'll just like, this is just for you.
Right.
That I am huge fan of Jack, right? I saw Jack when I was 15, 16 at Brighton Time. Anyway, so did Latitude Festival, and Jack very kindly offers to give me a lift back to London, right? Wow. And but he's got his tour manager with him, so we're in the car and we pull over at a service station, and I can't believe I'm sharing this journey home with Jack Dee, and we go into the. It wasn't a service station, sorry, it's a petrol station, right?
Yeah,
so we're actually in the petrol station.
Yeah.
And I just happened to see what Jack's got. I don't know why. I just looked down the aisle, see what he's got. Got some crisps, beer, whatever. I get whatever I get. We get back into the car, and you know what it's like. You start the chat when you get back into the
He
car.
used to do a joke about people looking into his shopping basket and going, "Oh, is that Jaffa cakes there?" Anyway, so this I'm thinking, is this the origin of a bit, or is this literally like
this is just one of those wonderful things where you've got you've just got the act, and then you see. You spend some time with the real person, and you just see suddenly where the act comes from.
Yeah.
So you get into the car, and you just start the small chat, and I go, what did everyone get? And driver says, "What you got?"
Yeah.
I said, "What I got." Jack said, "Oh, I've just got some beers." And in my head, I'm thinking, I saw you with crisps. I went, "Oh right, I saw you with crisps." I went, "Oh yeah, no, it's just the thing I like to do. I crush them and put them back."
Brilliant.
Like, he wasn't going to tell me that. That wasn't, so I could get back into the car and tell everyone what I did. That was just for him.
Brilliant. It's amazing.
Anyway.
I had a similar thing with two similar things. One was I did a gig with Jeff Green and Lee Evans. And this was like before
two of my favourite comedians.
Both great, yeah. And this was this was probably 100-seater gig, and I had to get the train afterwards. And well, firstly, Lee was getting changed in the kitchen of the comedy club and stripped completely naked, stood in the sink and washed himself down with those things for washing the dishes. And there was a window, and it was on a hill, and there was a window, and all the audience were leaving like that. You could see people going, "Oh, look, there's Lee Evans' cock." And anyway, they gave me a lift to the station. And I had a similar thing of going, bloody hell, it's just like, going there. And I had another one where I did a thing in Leeds, and there was no train back. So, would you like a lift? We've got a car coming back. Yes, I would. Thank you very much, Rolf Harris.
What?
Yeah. So I basically spent a car journey, and in the same way that you saw Jack and went, "Oh my God, this guy's amazing. Look at him entertaining himself with that." You see the real person. Rolf Harris spent the whole journey just telling me the filthiest jokes as my entire childhood crumbled. Turns out that was when somebody shows you who they are. Anyway, sorry.
Portending.
Have we actually got to anything you wanted to?
Yes.
Right.
Well done. We have.
We have.
Don't worry. No, you've been very...
There's probably about 20 different threads that we've started and we haven't got back, but...
Don't worry. Well...
Is this what it's meant to be?
I mean, it's usually a bit more linear.
All right, fair enough. But
one thing I do always ask is...
We didn't actually talk about school at all, did we, really?
We did get to school.
Yeah. But what I was going to say is that having seen that show and then deciding I was going to be a stand-up comic and I wasn't going to do the juggling anymore.
Yes.
I went back to school. And I was like, I'm going to be a comedian. And it was one of those things where you say that at school, and because the thing about me was didn't give a shit, right? Didn't give a shit what anyone thought of me. I don't care whether you find me funny. I don't care whether
that's amazing.
I
so
fit
freeing.
in and all that. There's that thing. I was going to be a comedian. All I heard was people at school just going, "You're not funny. You're not funny. You can't be a comedian." Like literally that thing of like almost, that thing of like it was like you were. I might as well have said, "I'm going to be Michael Jackson." You know what I mean? You might as well have said, "I'm going to be Prime Minister." And it was like, you can't. You're not a comedian like that. And then go back to school and having this sort of negative thing of people just going, "You're not funny." By the time I got to being on stage, so like, it's like people talking about social media. When you ride a unicycle to school and you're unicycling into the school and people are spitting at you and calling you a freak, nothing to like. So that idea of being fearless, I don't look like, going back to what you said at the start, this idea, people probably look at me and just go like, I've got this kind of, people, do say, you've got this kind of like, there's no fear, there's no sort of this thing of like completely free.
Yeah.
when you've come through that at school, where you've literally gone, you know, where you're basically like, you're thick, you know what I mean? Like, you're thick, you're not going to amount to anything. And other kids at school are like, you're a dick. And every day, and I didn't care. I was juggling at school and I was riding my unicycle into school. But when every single day you basically, people just go, well, yo, I'm sure there's people that I went to school with now are just going, he's always been a dick. He's still a dick now. It's that thing of like, when you then become a comedian, Teflon, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
So from that point onwards, I was literally like, and then obviously I left school, 15, did my open spot, and then I've never had a job. So
incredible to the people that thought.
So I was right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, don't care. Like if those people still don't find me funny, don't care.
But the people that still, you know, that might have said that and might still think that, where can they get tickets for your next global tour?
rossnoble.com.
There you go.
There you go.
Enjoy that.
Yeah.
But before I go, because I do tend to ask this question, is we're going to philosophy now, Ross. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Aristotle says that, the quote, give me a child until the age of 7 and I will show you the foundations of the man. You know that quote?
I thought that was Baden-Powell.
Someone said someone said this.
Baden-Powell.
But he said it. Why is it quoted as Aristotle?
Look, if you got it off Wikipedia, then go look to you.
Yes,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I think I think he nicked it off Plato though, to be honest.
Oh my God.
Baden-Powell's robbed them all.
Okay.
It's like that joke about the King and I that got passed down through all the generations of comedians. But anyway,
yes, right. But you know the quote?
Yeah, you just said it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did you? But you knew it before?
Yes, I did.
So we see Ross at 7. Can Baden-Powell see that and go, I can see what this child's going to go on to do?
Well, my mum had a load of my school reports.
Who's Baden-Powell?
Lord Baden-Powell, the author of Scouting for Boys. He started the scouting movement.
This will have to. I'll have to look this up afterwards. Go.
I do a scouting podcast where, so there was a school report, and this is why. Yes, that does apply.
Wow.
There's a because you know
it often does.
Behavioral. Like I say, there's certain behaviors as a child that you know now have bought me a house, but then I think this just shows you how things are framed up sometimes as a negative. It literally said in my school report, Ross's eccentric classroom behavior will no doubt provide a real handicap in the future. Like I say, rossnoble.com. The tour runs until March.
That's fantastic. I mean, yeah, there we go. I've got. Look, that's it. We've done it. We've overran.
Is that? Of course we have.
Which you told me we were going to do.
It's going to happen, isn't it?
And it's been an absolute pleasure.
I really enjoyed that.
And I saw you in. You won't remember this. It was Brighton Comedy Festival, and I had seen you on Live at the Apollo, and I was working in a suit shop somehow.
No, I came in asking for flares.
Yes!
Yeah, I do remember.
Amazing! I wasn't a comedian, but I saw you and I went, Ross!
Yeah.
And you came in, and I helped you find flares.
But did you didn't want to be a comedian?
I did want to be a comedian. I absolutely wanted to be a comedian.
Is that right? And you told me.
I probably did.
But I always do that. I do that thing of like, I love it, right? I love it. We're doing another 2 hours. I love it whenever I meet people who either say, I want to be a comedian, or my friends say I should be a comedian.
Yeah.
I do that thing, you know, that Fight Club thing of like taking the thing of I'm coming back.
Right.
You know, it's that it's that thing. I always say the same thing. I go, you have to do it. Don't wait. Do it now. You know, just do it.
Yes, absolutely.
You never regret the things that you do. You only regret the things that you don't do.
Yes, absolutely. Well,
maybe.
Hang on.
That. But anyway,
we're fade to black on that.
Thanks for
that. Just us thinking.
Right. Let's just stare at each other awkwardly.
Well, I hope you can tell I thoroughly enjoyed that. It's absolutely fantastic hearing how Ross Noble became the comedy superstar he is today. And of course, give us a like, comment on the shows. We really do appreciate it here. Anyway, I've been Seann Walsh, and we'll see you next week.